Can you talk about consistency, percentage, or how long to keep tasks on a habit tracker? That's a great question, Michelle. So we have talked about consistency before inside the community when we were still doing topics. And what it comes down to in terms of being consistent for you is what is important to you and what feels good. Sure, in some ideal world, you're doing something every single day. The feasibility of that is slim to none. Like, we have lives, things pop up, energies fluctuate, we get sick, we go on vacation, we are going to miss things. So we're going to talk about that more in week 4 when we talk about like life getting in the way of your routines. But when it comes to being consistent with your routines, what feels good for you and your goals? I know that for me, I care more about clicking start. I use an app called Routinery. You've all heard me talk about that a gazillion times. Every single day that I am like in work mode, clicking start. The likelihood that I do all of the steps hardly ever happens. I am constantly skipping steps. So to me, the consistency is starting the routine, even if I'm not doing all of the steps. Somebody else might feel differently. They might feel like I would rather do it 3 to 4 days and do all of the steps. It's what's going to work for you. So in terms of a percentage, there is no right or wrong percentage or something to work towards. What I will say on that front is that if you are a numbers person and you're motivated by numbers and like working towards numbers and goals, compare yourself to prior versions of you in a positive way in terms of improving. So for example, let's say that you're working on starting a cleaning routine that has you wiping down the counters every single day. And in an ideal world, you would do it every day because that feels good in your life. Again, I'm still telling you you're going to miss days. Okay. So in July, you track and you discover that you did it 16 out of the 31 days in July, just over 50%. Okay, that's a lot. 50% is a lot. So then you could set a more concrete goal for August to say, I'm going to do it 60% of the days in August. And then you work towards that. And then let's say you do it 61% of the days in August. So then you work up to 70%. 70% doesn't quite go. So you maybe do 70% for 2 months until it feels good. And then you work your way up to 80. And then maybe 80 feels good. Maybe with life and things that happen, that feels like that works for you. And you feel like you have made that into a habit. So then I'm using it to transition into the second part of your question about keeping tasks on a habit tracker. Then you take it off and you're like, this feels good. It feels like a habit. I'm going to take it off. And for 2 months, it goes well. And you're still doing it if you're not tracking it. So you don't know, maybe 70 to 80 something percent of the time. But it feels good. Your counters feel like they're wiped down and makes your house feel more put together. And then the holidays happen and things get kind of out of whack and you get thrown off that habit. And then you realize in January that you're not doing it very often and you're kind of putting it off. So you throw it back on. You throw it back on the habit tracker for February and you see how it goes. Just because you have to add something back on does not mean that you are a failure. So there is no right or wrong time to try taking it off. It's whatever. I know that doesn't always help because you're like, I want you to give me a number. And I'm not going to give you a number. Because I want you to recognize, first off, there's no right number. And second, and there's also, the numbers can vary based on the goal. And so like, there's no right number, but I want you to figure out that feeling in yourself when you're like, okay, this feels good. And I feel like I can take it off. And then you notice when you might need to put it back on. And that doesn't mean that you have failed. And if those of you who have watched me and my goals over the years, there are so many goals that I have taken off and put back on and taken off and put back on. And it doesn't mean that I am bad at goals or bad at life. It just means that there are times that I was consistent and I didn't need that accountability. And then things got in the way, life happened, whatever. And I needed to put it back on. And sometimes it might feel like, well, am I going to do that for the rest of forever? Am I going to consistently be taking things off and putting back on? And the answer is maybe. there might be things like drinking water that you are going to have to go through phases where you have to remind yourself that this is something that's important. And I feel like we all have things that to somebody else, it's really straightforward. I get asked a lot about like somebody taking vitamins or taking medication. That's never been a struggle for me. Like ever since I worked on that and made it a habit, I have never fallen off and needed to put it back on. And that's just one thing that's worked for me. But there are probably lots of things that I have to put back on that other people are like, really? You have to put that on your list? Like I do that just doing it. Okay, great. Everybody is different. And so there might be things that you always have to kind of keep an eye on and see like, do I need to add that back on? How's that going? And it's just getting better at those like feelings for yourself. Hopefully that was helpful. I was getting frustrated. I wasn't doing a daily task every day. So I added it in my weekly task to complete 5 of 7 days and have it in the daily tracker as well. It is helpful to have it in both places. Yeah, I love that. I've done that before too. Y'all have seen me do that where I actually initially started this with my sister, with her doing it this way. And then I was like, oh, I like that idea. And then I included it on my goals. If it's something that you're working up towards. Given that we are planner people, we like having things to check off for sure, Lisa Marie. And if you aren't motivated by check mark, okay, some of us are and some of us aren't. It doesn't mean that you can't be successful at it. It's figuring out what does motivate you. How can you be inspired to keep going and to keep at the thing, even if it's not getting something checked off? Hopefully that was helpful. It does make sense that life is always changing, so habits will too. Exactly. And I've said this before. Sometimes like the life getting in the way is really obvious things, right? You retire, you move, you have a baby, you get married, you get divorced, well, like whatever all of those things are. And it's like, well, of course this is a time that I'm going to check in with my habits. But sometimes like life just shifting a little bit that you can't even see over time also impacts your habits, or the weather changing slightly. Like, I don't know about you. I mean, Michelle, I know you're in the same climate I am. Like, what the heck has been with this heat and humidity? Like, I think the amount of water I needed daily in Chicago last summer is not what I need daily in Chicago this summer. And that might have to adjust. What the heck? At the end of the day, I will sometimes add things to my to-do list to check off so I can see what I actually did. Maybe I didn't do everything on my list, but I did 3 things that weren't on it. Absolutely, Monica. I love that tangible aspect of seeing that progress. I have said that before with like my goal sheet. How many times, like, are there things in my life that isn't captured there that did happen? And, you know, maybe there's a better way to not necessarily track it, but just like acknowledge those things at the end of the month. Like, here's all the things they did also do that wasn't on this list. So when I see, I don't personally struggle when I don't see the check marks, like on my goal sheet. Like I don't, when I have lack of check marks, like it doesn't bother me. But it's still nice sometimes to acknowledge the things I did do.